Stop, just for 1 second. Before today swallows you whole, before the to-do list begins, before the phone vibrates for the first time, before anxiety remembers your name, there is something waiting for you. Not a lesson, not advice, but a voice. That voice has been speaking to you since before you opened your eyes this morning. You just haven't been quiet enough to hear it. Today is not a random day. There is something you often do in the morning without realizing it. You wake up and immediately begin evaluating your day. Does today look promising? Does today seem hopeful? Does today feel like yesterday, that heavy, blurry yesterday that felt like standing still while the whole world kept running? But God sees your morning in a completely different way. Psalm 1:8-24 says, "This is the day the Lord has made. Not the day you made, not the day your circumstances made. The day God made, with intention, with design, with a purpose you have not yet seen." Elijah in 1 Kings 19 lay down under a tree and wanted to die. He had fought too long, he had prayed too much. He could no longer see meaning anymore. And God did not come to him with a long sermon. He sent an angel to touch his shoulder and say the simplest sentence possible: "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." No judgment, no condemnation, just get up. Today still matters. You are not at the end of the road yet. No matter how you woke up this morning, tired, empty, or simply uncertain, today is not random. It was created by the one who knows what you need before you know you need it. What you are carrying, God saw it beforehand. Be honest for 1 second. There is something you are carrying that you have not told anyone, not because there is no one to tell, but because you do not know where to begin, or because you are afraid to hear yourself say it out loud. Maybe it is worry about money, about a relationship that is falling apart, about a future that feels unclear, about the feeling that you are standing still while everyone around you is moving forward. God is not unfamiliar with those things. Isaiah 65:24 says, "Before they call, I will answer. While they are still speaking, I will hear." What does that mean? It means the worry you had last night, that moment you lay staring at the ceiling unable to sleep, God already heard it. Before you could even turn it into a prayer, before you knew what to ask for. 1 Peter 5:7 says, "Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you." Not try to worry less, not be stronger, but cast it like putting down a heavy object from your hands. You were not created to carry that alone. And this morning, before you walk out of your room, you can put it down. What seems forgotten has not been forgotten. There are prayers you stopped praying, not because you stopped believing, but because you waited long enough to begin thinking, maybe this is not meant for me. You asked for a door. The door did not open. You asked for a sign. The sky stayed silent, and slowly, you stopped asking. You just kept living, carrying a small empty space inside your heart where that dream used to be. But Hebrews 6:10 says, "God is not unjust. He will not forget your work." Remember the story of Sarah. She laughed when she heard God's promise, not because she was joyful, but because she had waited so long that the promise no longer sounded real. And God asked, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" He did not forget, he was preparing. There are seeds that will die if they are pulled up too early, not because the seed is weak, but because the roots are not deep enough yet to survive the light. What God holds back is not because he is delaying. It is because he loves you enough to wait for the right moment when you can receive it without breaking. God's silence does not mean he is absent. This is the hardest thing to believe during dry seasons. When prayer feels like speaking into emptiness, when the Bible opens and nothing touches you, when other people say they hear God clearly, and you look inside yourself and hear only silence. Samuel was still young when he heard a voice calling during the night. He ran to Eli 3 times, thinking it was a human voice, until he was taught that it was the voice of God. But God did not come in the way Samuel expected. 1 Kings 19:12 describes God coming to Elijah not in the strong wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in a gentle whisper. God does not need to be loud to be real. Psalm 46:10 does not say, "Do more and know that I am God." It says, "Be still and know." Stillness is not distance. Sometimes it is the place where he is working deepest, beneath the surface, where eyes cannot see, where roots are growing downward in the dark. If today you cannot hear anything, do not conclude that God has left. Conclude that he is doing something you cannot yet see. You are in a battle, but the outcome has already been decided. There is a reason why some mornings feel heavier than others without any obvious explanation. You wake up and feel darkness. No specific reason, just heavy, just blurry, like something is pressing down on you that you cannot see. That is not your imagination. Ephesians 6:12 says clearly, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces in the heavenly realms." Spiritual warfare does not only happen in dramatic moments. It happens in whispers you mistake for your own thoughts. You are not good enough. You have prayed so much and still nothing has changed. Maybe God has plans for other people, not for you. That is a lie, designed to sound like truth. But 1 John 4:4 says, "Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world." You are not called to win this battle by yourself. You are called to stand firm in the victory Jesus already won on the cross. This morning, when those whispers begin, you have the authority to say, "No, that is not the truth about me." God does not come to you when you are good enough. He comes to you as you are. There is an image in Luke 15 that you need to look at slowly. The prodigal son returned home. He had already prepared an apology speech. He was ready to be rejected, or at least looked at with disappointment. He did not think he deserved to be called a son anymore. But Luke 15:20 records a detail people often read too quickly. While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and ran to him. The father did not stand and wait, he ran. He did not ask, "What have you done?" He did not wait for the apology. He did not check whether the son was repentant enough. He saw him from far away and ran. That is your God, not a God sitting on a throne with folded arms, waiting for you to become good enough to come near, but a God watching the road you are walking on. And the moment he sees your shadow turning back, even while you are still far away, even before you can say anything, he is already running. Romans 5:8, "While we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Not after you fixed yourself, not after you became strong enough. While you were still a sinner, that love was already there. This morning's grace is new, not carried over from yesterday. Lamentations 3:22-23 is one of the verses written out of ashes. Jeremiah wrote these words after Jerusalem had been destroyed, after his people had been exiled, after everything he knew had collapsed. And he sat among the ruins and wrote, "Because of the Lord's great love we are not consumed, for his mercies never fail, they are new every morning." He did not write that because life was going well. He wrote it in the middle of the ashes. He chose to believe it when there was no visible evidence for it. And that is what God wants to say to you this morning. Yesterday you may have failed. Yesterday you may have been tired, spoken wrongly, not lived according to what you believed. Today's grace does not inherit those things. It is new, completely new. You do not walk into today with a grace account drained by yesterday. You walk in with a full account made new every morning. Nothing subtracted, nothing reduced. That is not a reason to repeat what is wrong. It is a reason to stand up and keep walking, even when you feel unworthy. These are truths that have always been there. It is just that sometimes you need to be reminded. Like person in love needing to hear "I love you," not because they do not know it, but because human beings were created to hear love spoken out loud. God knows that. And that is why he did not simply write these things into a book and leave you to read them alone. He placed within your heart a longing to hear his voice every day, in the morning, before the world has a chance to speak, before anxiety wakes up. If today you remember only one thing out of these 7 truths, remember the last one. Today's grace is new, no matter what yesterday looked like. You can begin again, not because you are strong enough, but because God has been running toward you since you were still far away. His mercies never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22-23.